Hello, good evening. My name is Ernesto Tobar, and welcome to my chess channel. I wanted to go over one of my most recent games in which I play with the white pieces. I do want to go over a couple of the ideas and strategies behind my moves. That way, if you ever do come across a similar scenario on your chessboard, you can go ahead and replicate those same ideas to your games. When it comes to my physical game here, it does show here a quick analysis as to how I performed. Right here on chess.com, it showed I played against Rene Morales, whose rating is close to expert at a 21, close to 2100, as well as myself, roughly around that same rating on this account. I was ranked 97%, and so far most of my moves have been pretty accurate. So I did want to go ahead and proceed with sharing some of those ideas with you. So let us begin. All right, so right here in this particular opening, I started off with the move knight f3, pretty standard. Usually with any chess opening that you start off with, you do want to go with the four main squares here, d4, d5, e4, e5. So knight simply does have these two squares right here to control. And then black proceed the same idea, controlling the center. And then just for me, just accelerate with that idea, placing a piece in the middle of the board. Black responds with the same strategy. And then with the next couple of moves, this is pretty much, it's a basic, has the same understanding where we are controlling pieces in the center of the board. And black responds with pawn to c6, defending the pawn on d5. Went ahead and played pawn to e4, e3, and then black responded with pawn to e6. I I personally feel like in this position here, I could have definitely responded with maybe bishop here, with a follow-up of possibly preventing my bishop of coming out in this square. Because if I do happen to move there, bishop capture bishop, and maybe it's a pretty equal position. Black does start to get some counterplay with maybe queen to b6, attacking the pawn on b2. So in this position, just so even going further, if he does happen to play pawn to e6, it just prevents the bishop from coming out to any of these squares. So it did hurt his position. So let's continue. So we left off to e6, played bishop to d3. He played bishop to e7 with the idea of castling on the king side. And here I'm just developing my pieces, controlling the center, having my pieces all get involved into the center of the board, and essentially start proceeding into entering the middle game, in which we start creating some attacking possibilities. Next up, he goes ahead and plays b6, which was, I feel like it was a waste of a move. The system doesn't agree with it. I could see from a logical perspective, maybe he's trying to free the bishop to a6. Possibly also give square. Maybe the knight can also jump into a6. And if, let's say, I castle, knight here, bishop takes, and he has some sort of chances, but I feel like in this position, it doesn't call for it. There's no immediate threat. And if he's looking with the idea of pawn up, I just think it's just way too slow in this position. So he plays pawn to b6, and then I just develop my pieces naturally, controlling the center. Knight to e5. Now he has a position where if he does happen to move his knight somewhere, I could just go ahead and attack his pawn on c6. So it does create some weaknesses here. Knight to e5 is played. and black decides to castle. I go ahead and play pawn to g4, and I think this is a really good move in this position here. A lot of times, in chess, you've got to take risks. This definitely goes against with the idea of like leaving the king in the center of the board. Usually, you want to castle your king as quickly as possible, but in this position here, you got a bishop that's attacking the pawn on h7. You've got a bishop heading towards the direction of the king. You have a knight that's covering these two squares. So it does call for it. Last but not least, you do have a position here. Let me just clear the board. If he doesn't respond to this pawn move, I also have pawn pushing to g5 with the idea of attacking the knight on f6 and essentially bringing out my queen after. So this is very dangerous, and now we're just at move 8, and black is definitely starting to feel the heat in this position. Next, black responded with pawn to c5, and as I mentioned earlier, I did have a feeling that he was going to play that with the sense of if pawn takes, pawn can capture, but it's too slow. I already have all my pieces attacking towards the king side, so I went ahead and responded to follow with my idea. And it's always said that it's better to have a plan than no plan at all. And if it's not such a good plan, then I would just say adjust this position here. This is a great plan, pushing heading towards the king side. Knight decides to move to e4, and then here I went ahead and I captured the knight on e4. I wanted to accept the trade because of in the instance that if pawn captures, bishop captures, I do have an attack on the rook. Sorry, I do have an attack on the rook, um, and as well as an attack on the pawn on h7. So this is definitely winning for me in this particular position. However, black didn't respond with that. He went ahead and played pawn to c4, which is a definite mistake because right now you're allowing for my pieces to continuously move up towards the center of the board and essentially move up towards your king side. Doesn't matter how many pieces you could possibly win, but if your king is in danger, if your king is checkmated, the game is over. So I responded and I said, hey, listen, I captured a piece. I wanted to go ahead and provide some sort of activity to try to open the king's safety. And I played knight to f6 with the idea if, let's say, if pawn wants to capture the knight, you have a situation where the king is completely open. So let's review that position. Pawn captures knight, pawn captures pawn, bishop captures pawn, and now I could have a position where I could potentially move my rook to g1, or possibly even play queen to g4, or queen to h5. And this position here, looking into the analysis, it's already showing there's mate in 9, mate in 7, mate at 5, and mate in 2, based on how black responds. So this is something that's very nice to have in this kind of position. Um, but black didn't opt in to capture with the pawn. He went ahead and opted in with capturing with... Oh, actually, I thought he would capture with the bishop. I apologize for that. He actually did capture with the pawn. But I went ahead and I continued with my assault. And I went ahead and captured with the bishop. Just with the same idea, I just want to have the king exposed as quickly as possible. So I went ahead and I captured bishop to h7, and even though it does seem pretty crazy to go ahead and sacrifice another piece, it's not necessarily the safest of moves to play on from white side. However, the whole idea that I had in this game, if I have multiple pieces already actively involved into controlling the center and attempting to crash through the pawns that are on f7, f7, g6, and as well as, sorry, f7, g7, h7. If I'm able to crash through, I have a lot of winning chances, and it's easier if you're playing on a computer. You have all of these ways in which you can accurately get all of these moves, but from a human side, it's very difficult to try to get this figured out. So I don't recall what Black exactly played, but let's take a look. Black went ahead and captured the bishop on h7. Try to see if he could get some sort of compensation from some of the pieces that he's already lost. And as indicated here, went ahead right away and played queen to h5, just looking to continuously attack the king. And as it's known, king has to address any kind of checks, whether it's he puts a piece in between the attacking piece, if he runs away, or if he captures the attacking piece as well. So um, he's pretty much tied up. So he moves back onto g8, and again, I'm just taking the initiative. Pawn captures pawn, and if he doesn't move his bishop, then I have queen to g5, and then queen to g7 with mate. So he's got to respond maybe with capture. And then I believe in this position here, I just continue attacking the king. Rook g1, forcing the king to defend as much as possible. Black responds with bishop to g7. And at this point, I just don't care about material. I just want to make sure that the king is completely exposed. So in this position here, the best move that I could see for white to win is rook captures bishop to g7, check. The only move he has is to capture the rook. Unfortunately, he's unable to move to any of the square because the queen is covering those squares and the rook is preventing the king from moving to the side. So king captures rook, and then I continue to play bishop to h6, forcing moves on the board. King moves up to g8, and then I believe I play queen to g4, check. And then no matter where the king goes, he goes, I'll play out the move that was played by the opponent, but he moved to h8, and I checkmated the king. However, if he decides to move to h7 as a response, I could go ahead and checkmate the king there. And if he does block with the queen, I can also checkmate him that way. So just kind of go over the positions here. Just keep in mind, you don't have to be the best chess player on the, you don't have to necessarily be a GM or IM or any of these top players that you would see online or in person. You gotta just make sure that you get the fundamentals, control the center, develop your pieces, have your pieces coordinate towards your opponent's king. This idea wouldn't have been possible if I had all my pieces on the left side of the board. It would just take that much longer to try to reach my opponent and to try to checkmate the king. So try to create those ideas and strategies into how you're going to navigate your pieces towards your opponent's king, and most importantly, um, you got to be spicy with your moves. Sometimes, like I get it. Sometimes well, you're afraid maybe to take some chances, but in chess, sometimes, especially in a game like this, you saw as a clear example, if you have been able to check off little by little, hey, have I put my pieces towards the center? Have I put my pieces close to the king to have multiple pieces ready to attack? If some of those things are kind of going off in your mind and you just can see that you're ready to attack, you're ready to create some chances to get a checkmate, I would advise you to try to create some of these possibilities, and you'll see this. For me, I think this was a very fun game. I think that it shows, especially with a lot of players who are against the London system. You hear a lot of people say, "Oh, it's a very boring opening," but this is a clear example of how fun you can have situations in which, like, hey, if you follow these steps, you're able to get a checkmate and or at least some enjoyment out of the game. I'm going to continue creating some of this series around, like, hey, some of the games that I personally play and what are some of the thought processes that I have when I play these games. However, I do have some personal games that I played against international masters or grandmasters in which I've won, so I will be sharing with that as well. But I will go ahead. I'll leave you to that, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to post it up on the comment section below. And thank you so much for taking the time to watching this video. Hope you have a good rest of your night.